"Sir, I need you to remove this animal from the terminal. Now." The security officer's voice cut through the din of Gate 23, sharp and insistent. His hand rested on the radio clipped to his belt, fingers twitching with the promise of backup. Before him, a German shepherd sat perfectly still on the polished floor, his dark eyes fixed on the arrival doors as passengers streamed past with their rolling luggage and coffee cups and phones pressed to their ears. "He's not bothering anyone." The voice belonged to a woman in her 60s, silver-haired and steady. She stood between the officer and the dog, her carry-on bag still slung over one shoulder. She'd been watching this scene unfold for 20 minutes now, ever since her own flight had landed, and something about the dog's unwavering focus had kept her rooted to the spot. "Ma'am, this is the third time this week. The animal is a health code violation. We've tried to catch him, but he won't let anyone near him. If you're not his owner, I need you to step aside." "And if I don't?" The officer's jaw tightened. Around them, travelers slowed their pace, phones rising to capture the confrontation. The dog remained motionless, as if carved from stone. Only his eyes moved, tracking each person who emerged from the international arrivals corridor, searching, always searching. "Then I'll have to call animal control. Is that what you want? You want this dog locked in a cage?" The woman looked down at the shepherd. His ribs were visible beneath his coat. His paws were cracked and raw, but his posture was perfect, military precise, and there was something in his bearing that suggested purpose rather than abandonment. This was not a lost dog. This was a dog on a mission. "Give me until tomorrow," she said. "One day. Let me figure out who he belongs to." The officer opened his mouth to refuse, but something in the woman's expression stopped him. Perhaps it was the certainty in her eyes. Perhaps it was the way the dog, for the first time since the confrontation began, glanced up at her with what might have been approval. 24 hours, he said finally. "After that, I make the call." The woman nodded. She set down her bag and slowly, carefully, lowered herself to the floor beside the shepherd. He didn't move away, didn't acknowledge her presence beyond that single glance. His attention had already returned to the arrival doors, to the flow of strangers emerging from Gate 23, to the vigil that had consumed him for 47 days. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just become part of a story that had begun months ago and thousands of miles away, in a dusty Afghan valley, where a soldier had made a promise to the sister he hadn't spoken to in 15 years, a promise that even death couldn't break. The dog's name was Rex, and he was waiting for someone who didn't know she was expected. The woman's name was Colette Brennan, and she'd spent 30 years as a veterinary surgeon before retiring to a small coastal town in Maine. She'd come to Denver for her grandson's graduation, nothing more. She had a return flight booked for the following afternoon. But as she sat on that airport floor, watching Rex maintain his impossible vigil, she felt the familiar pull of a puzzle that demanded solving. She took out her phone and snapped a photograph. The dog's profile against the terminal's bright lights, the intensity of his gaze, the worn military-grade collar around his neck, faded green with patches of threading coming loose. She posted the image to a lost pet forum, then to her own social media accounts, adding a simple caption. "This shepherd has been waiting at Denver International for weeks. Does anyone know him?" The responses came within minutes. Dozens of them. Hundreds. People had seen Rex. Airport staff had tried to feed him. A pilot had attempted to coax him into a carrier. A janitor had left water bowls near his post every morning for 3 weeks. But no one knew where he'd come from or what he was waiting for. Then, late that night, as Colette dozed in an uncomfortable airport chair she'd dragged near Rex's chosen spot, a message arrived that changed everything. "That's Sergeant Morrison's dog, David Morrison. He died 3 months ago, Helmand Province." The message included a link to a military memorial page. Colette opened it with trembling fingers, and there he was. A young man in desert fatigues, perhaps 30 years old, with Rex sitting beside him. The caption read, SGT David Morrison and his partner Rex, KIA March 15th. A hero and his loyal companion. But there was something wrong with the narrative. According to the memorial page, Rex had been retired from service after David's death and sent to a military dog adoption program in Virginia. He should have been 1,000 miles east, living with a new family. Instead, he was here, in Denver, waiting at a gate that received daily flights from Sydney. Colette scrolled through the memorial comments. Most were standard condolences. Thank yous for his service, prayers for his soul. But one comment, posted just 2 weeks after David's death, stood out. I wish I'd known you wanted to talk. I wish I hadn't been so stubborn. I'm so sorry, David. I'm so sorry I waited too long. It was signed simply E. Dawn broke over the Rockies, painting the terminal windows gold. Rex hadn't moved except to drink from the water bowl Colette had placed beside him. She'd managed a few hours of sleep, her head resting against her bag, but her mind had worked through the night, assembling pieces of a story she didn't yet fully understand. She made calls. First to the military adoption program in Virginia, where a flustered coordinator confirmed that yes, Rex had indeed been placed with a family, but he'd escaped within 48 hours. They'd searched for weeks, filed reports, eventually assumed he'd been killed by traffic or wildlife. How did he get from Virginia to Colorado? Colette asked. Ma'am, we don't know. We honestly don't know. Next, she called her daughter, who worked in military records. Within an hour, she had David Morrison's file. Born in Portland, Oregon, parents deceased, enlisted at 19, multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, decorated for valor. And there, buried in the personal information section, next of kin, Emma Morrison, last known address, Sydney, Australia. Emma, the E from the memorial page. Colette dug deeper. Found a newspaper article from 15 years earlier, a small item in the Portland Tribune about a family dispute over inheritance after the Morrison parents' death in a car accident. David and Emma, twins, had apparently fought so bitterly over their mother's estate that they'd severed all contact. David kept the family home. Emma emigrated to Australia. Neither spoke to the other again, until 3 months ago. Colette found it in David's email records, obtained through a contact at the Veterans Affairs Office who owed her a favor. A single email, sent 4 weeks before David's death, addressed to an Australian email account. Emma, I know I have no right to ask this. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I'm on my last tour, and if something happens to me, I need you to know that I never stopped thinking about you. That fight, that stupid fight about money and houses and who loved Mom more, it poisoned 15 years of our lives. I don't want to die with that poison still in me. I'll be back in Denver on April 28th, arriving on the evening flight from Germany. I know you fly in from Sydney sometimes for work. If there's any chance you could meet me at the airport, just once, just to talk, I'd wait forever for that chance. Your brother David. April 28th had come and gone 2 months ago. David had been killed on March 15th. He never made that flight, but Rex, apparently, had gone to meet it anyway. Colette looked at the dog, understanding blooming like a dark flower in her chest. He wasn't waiting for David. He was waiting for Emma. Following some instruction, some training, some final mission his handler had given him before deploying on that last, fatal patrol. If something happens to me, make sure Emma comes. Make sure she knows. Finding Emma Morrison proved easier than expected. Colette's daughter tracked her through LinkedIn, a civil engineer working for a mining company based in Perth, with frequent travel to the United States. Her company email was listed publicly. Colette stared at her phone for 20 minutes before composing the message. How do you tell a woman that her estranged brother died trying to reconcile? That he'd trained his dog to wait for her at an airport? That even in death, he was still reaching across the chasm they'd created? In the end, she kept it simple. My name is Dr. Colette Brennan. I'm writing to you about your brother David's dog, Rex. I believe he has something that belongs to you. Can we talk? The response came within an hour. Just 3 words. Tell me everything. They spoke by video call, Colette finding a quiet corner of the terminal while Rex maintained his vigil 50 feet away. Emma Morrison appeared on screen, and Colette understood immediately why David had loved her enough to keep trying. She had his eyes, the same dark, serious gaze that stared out from his memorial photos. "He never got my response," Emma said after Colette explained everything she'd discovered. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as they gripped a coffee mug. "I didn't see his email for 3 weeks. It went to spam. By the time I found it, he was already gone. I sent him a message anyway, told him yes, I'd meet him, told him I was sorry too, that I'd been trying to find the courage to reach out for years, that I'd already booked a flight for April 28th, just in case he meant it, just in case we could finally fix what we'd broken." "You were coming anyway," Colette said quietly. "I was already at the airport when I got the notification about his death. I was checking in for the flight to Denver when my phone rang. It was his commanding officer. I collapsed right there in the terminal. They had to call paramedics." Colette glanced at Rex. He'd shifted position slightly, sitting taller, as if sensing that something important was happening. "Emma, I need to show you something." She walked over to the dog. He allowed her to approach now, after their night together. She'd earned some measure of his trust. Carefully, she examined his collar, running her fingers along the reinforced edge until she felt it. A small, sealed compartment built into the tactical webbing. Inside, she found a waterproof pouch. Inside the pouch, 2 items. A photograph, faded and creased, of 2 children standing in front of a Christmas tree, identical in every way, except that one wore a red sweater and the other wore green. On the back, in careful handwriting, "Emma and David, age 6, the year we promised to always be on the same team," and a letter. Colette read it aloud, her voice breaking in places, while Emma listened through the phone and wept. If you're reading this, it means Rex did his job and I didn't do mine. It means I didn't make it home. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But mostly I'm sorry that I let pride and anger steal 15 years we could have spent as family. Mom and Dad wouldn't have wanted that. You know they wouldn't have. I trained Rex for a lot of things. Search and rescue, patrol, detection. But his last mission is the most important one I'll ever give him. If something happens to me, he knows to go to Denver International. He knows to wait at Gate 23, where the Sydney flights come in. He knows to wait for you. I don't know if you'll come. I don't know if you got my email or if you still hate me enough to ignore it, but I had to try. And Rex, stubborn old Rex, he won't give up. He'll wait as long as it takes. That's what I trained him to do. That's what I'm asking him to do now. Take care of him for me. He's the best partner I ever had, and he deserves better than what the military can give him. He deserves a home, a family. He deserves you, if you'll have him. And Em, if you're reading this, know that I died hoping we'd get our chance to fix things. I died believing that you'd come. I died loving you the way I should have loved you all along, without conditions, without resentment, without all the garbage we let get in the way. We were supposed to be on the same team. We still are. We always were. Your brother, David. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute. Then Emma spoke, her voice barely a whisper. When is the next flight from Sydney? Colette checked her phone. Tomorrow, evening arrival. Flight 847. I'll be on it. Emma, tell Rex I'm coming. Tell him his mission is almost over. Tell him, her voice broke. Tell him his soldier kept his promise, and so will I. Colette spent the next 30 hours with Rex. She bought him food, though he barely touched it. She brushed his coat. She spoke to him in low, gentle tones, explaining that Emma was coming, that he'd succeeded, that he could rest soon. Whether he understood or not, something in his bearing seemed to shift. The desperate edge to his vigil softened into simple patience. Airport security, having heard the story through Colette's various phone calls and messages, left them alone. A small crowd of travelers began to gather as word spread through social media. the dog who waited for his fallen soldier's sister, the final mission, the promise kept beyond death. By the time Flight 847 appeared on the arrival board, nearly 100 people lined the terminal, phones ready, eyes damp with tears they hadn't expected to shed for strangers. Emma Morrison emerged from the international corridor at 6:47 p.m., wearing a military jacket that had belonged to her brother. She'd retrieved it from his stored belongings, shipped to her after his death, never opened until yesterday. It smelled faintly of desert dust and the cologne he'd worn since high school. She saw Rex before he saw her. He was thinner than in the photos David had sent over the years, the few photos she'd looked at and then deleted, unable to bear the reminder of what she'd lost. But his posture was unmistakable, military straight, alert, faithful. Then his head turned. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. The terminal seemed to hold its breath. 100 phones recorded the scene, but Colette would remember it without any camera. The way Rex stood slowly, as if his joints ached from weeks of sitting. The way Emma dropped her bag and her composure in the same instant. The way they moved toward each other, not running, but with the inevitability of gravity. Rex reached her first. He sat at her feet, looked up at her face, and made a sound Colette had never heard him make before. A low, mournful whine that held 47 days of waiting and 15 years of separation and the weight of a promise fulfilled. Emma collapsed to her knees. She wrapped her arms around the dog's neck and buried her face in his fur. "I'm here," she whispered. "I came. I'm so sorry I'm late, but I came." Rex, for the first time since arriving at the airport, relaxed completely. His head lowered to rest against her shoulder. His tail moved once, twice, a slow metronome of relief and recognition. He'd completed his mission. He'd brought her home. Colette approached slowly, the letter still in her hand. She knelt beside Emma and offered it. "He wanted you to have this. Rex carried it all this way." Emma took the letter with shaking hands, read it through once, then again, tears streaming down her face. When she finished, she looked at Colette with eyes that held a question she couldn't quite voice. "He's yours now," Colette said gently, "if you want him." "Want him?" Emma laughed, a broken sound. "He's all I have left of David. He's all I have left of us." She pressed her forehead against Rex's. "We're going home, buddy. Both of us. We're going home." The paperwork took weeks. International pet transport, veterinary clearances, adoption proceedings complicated by Rex's military service record. But Emma stayed in Denver through all of it, refusing to leave Rex behind again. She rented a small apartment near the airport. She visited him every day, sometimes twice, bringing food and toys and simply sitting beside him, reading aloud from the notebook she'd found in David's effects. His journal from his first deployment. His thoughts about home, about her, about the fight they'd had and how much he regretted it. Rex listened to every word, and slowly, day by day, he began to eat, to play, to sleep through the night instead of startling awake every few hours, searching for a threat that no longer existed. By the time they finally boarded the flight to Perth together, Rex walking calmly beside Emma through the same terminal where he'd kept his vigil, he looked like a different dog, still thin, but stronger, still watchful, but no longer waiting. He'd found what he was searching for. He'd brought Emma back to David's memory, and in doing so, he'd brought her back to herself. 6 months later, Colette received a letter. Inside was a photograph of Emma and Rex standing on a beach at sunset, the Indian Ocean stretching out behind them. On the back, a message written in the same careful handwriting that had marked the childhood photo Rex had carried across a continent. "Dr. Brennan, I don't believe in miracles. I'm an engineer. I believe in mathematics and physics and things that can be measured and proved. But I believe in Rex. I believe that somehow my brother knew exactly what he was doing when he trained this dog to wait for me. David understood that I needed to be found, even if I didn't know I was lost. Rex and I visit David's memorial every month. It's a military cemetery in Portland, a long flight from Perth, but we make the trip. Rex sits by the headstone for an hour each time, perfectly still, the way he sat at the airport. I think he's saying goodbye, over and over, learning how to let go. I'm learning too. Learning that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about waiting, even when waiting seems impossible. It's about keeping promises, especially the ones we make to people we've hurt. David sent me an angel with 4 legs and a stubborn heart. And that angel refused to give up on me, even when I'd given up on myself. I think that's what love looks like, in its truest form. Not the easy kind that comes naturally, but the hard kind that waits at airports and carries letters across impossible distances and believes against all evidence that reconciliation is possible. Thank you for helping us find each other. Thank you for believing that a dog on a mission deserved a chance to complete it. We're healing, Rex and I, together, the way David hoped we would. With gratitude, Emma Morrison. Colette kept that letter on her refrigerator for the rest of her life. And every time she looked at it, she thought about the German shepherd who waited 47 days for a stranger, guided only by a dead soldier's faith that love could bridge any divide, even the one between life and death. Some missions don't end when the soldier falls. Some promises outlast the person who made them. And some dogs understand, better than we ever could, that loyalty isn't about who you're waiting for. It's about why you wait at all. Rex waited because David believed Emma would come. And in the end, belief was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.